The Artemis space station hung like a jewel against the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling clouds, its pristine white surfaces reflecting the distant sunlight. Lieutenant James Reeves crouched behind a sealed airlock door, his pulse steady despite the chaos erupting around him. The station's emergency lights painted everything in alternating strips of red and shadow, matching the urgent beat of his heart. "Status report," he whispered into his neural comm, adjusting the grip on his plasma rifle. The weapon's power cell hummed quietly against his palm, a reassuring reminder of the firepower at his disposal. 3 Zenith warriors confirmed on Level B, came the response from his team's AI tactical support. "They're moving toward the quantum research lab. Warning, detecting unusual energy signatures from their weapons." James allowed himself a grim smile. Of course they'd bring experimental tech to a raid on humanity's most advanced research station. The Zenith never did anything halfway. The sound of footsteps echoing through the corridor caught his attention. Light, graceful steps, the Zenith moved like dancers even in combat gear. James had learned to recognize their movement patterns during his 5 years defending Earth's outer colonies. A shadow appeared through the airlock's transparent panel, tall and lithe. James held his breath, waiting for the perfect moment. The airlock's control panel blinked from red to green as the Zenith warrior began the override sequence. James struck the moment the door began to slide open. He burst forward, plasma rifle already firing, and found himself face to face with the most striking warrior he'd ever encountered. Her skin was the deep blue of Earth's oceans, marked with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed with her movements. Silver eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with deadly focus. She moved with impossible speed, her own weapon already tracking toward his chest. They fired simultaneously. James felt the burn of her shot grazing his shoulder as he dove and rolled. His own blast caught her in the leg, drawing a hiss of pain that sounded almost musical. "Human," she spat the word, but there was something like respect in her tone. "You're quicker than most." "Thanks," James replied, taking cover behind a support pillar. "You're not so bad yourself. Got a name, or should I just call you, beautiful but deadly?" A burst of plasma fire answered him, melting a portion of his cover. "I am Thura Valren, 3rd Blade of the Zenith Vanguard. Remember it, for it will be the last name you hear." "Lieutenant James Reeves, Earth Defense Force," he called back, blind firing around the pillar. "And I've got to say, Thura, that's some of the best trash talk I've heard in a while. You practice in front of a mirror?" Her laugh surprised them both, a genuine sound of amusement that echoed through the corridor. "You jest even in battle? Perhaps there is more to humans than we thought." "Oh, honey, you have no idea," James grinned, then launched himself into a sprint toward the next piece of cover. Thura's shots followed him with deadly accuracy, but he'd timed his move perfectly with the station's rotating artificial gravity. As the subtle shift occurred, he used the momentary disorientation to his advantage. Their battle moved through the station like a deadly dance, each combatant learning the other's rhythm. James found himself admiring the fluid grace of her movements, the tactical brilliance of her strategies. She seemed equally intrigued by his unconventional approach, his ability to use the station's environment to his advantage. Neither noticed they were being herded toward the experimental medical bay until it was too late. The explosion caught them both off guard. Later, James would learn that one of Thura's squad had tried to breach the quantum containment field, with catastrophic results. In the moment, all he knew was fire and pain and the strange sight of Thura being thrown through the air alongside him. They crashed through the medical bay doors together, a tangle of human and Zenith limbs. James felt multiple ribs crack on impact. Thura's arm bent at an impossible angle. Blood, his red, her iridescent blue, mingled on the sterile white floor. Through the haze of pain, James saw the experimental healing pod activate. Its sensors had detected critical injuries and initiated emergency protocols. The pod's door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing an interior that pulsed with strange bioorganic light. "No choice," James gasped, dragging himself toward the pod. To his surprise, Thera was doing the same, her silver eyes glazed with pain but still alert. Agreed, she managed through gritted teeth. Better than bleeding out while trading insults with a human. They reached the pod together, their hands touching as they pulled themselves inside. The last thing James saw before the door sealed was Thera's face, inches from his own, her bioluminescent markings pulsing in time with her rapid heartbeat. Neither of them noticed the pod's neural interface activating, its experimental systems detecting two different species and beginning an unprecedented adaptation sequence. As healing energy wrapped around them both, their minds began to drift together in ways that would forever change the relationship between their species. The last thought James had before consciousness faded was that despite everything he'd been taught about the Zenith, he'd never felt more alive than during his battle with Thera. Her final conscious thought was remarkably similar, a grudging admission that perhaps humans were far more fascinating than she'd been led to believe. The pod systems hummed to life, and the real transformation began. Consciousness returned to James like waves lapping at a shore. The first thing he noticed wasn't pain, though his body had been broken, he felt only a pleasant warmth suffusing his limbs. Instead, it was the strange doubling of his thoughts that caught his attention. He was somehow experiencing two sets of sensations, two streams of consciousness. The healing pod's interior glowed with a soft, bioluminescent light that reminded him of Thera. Her patterns. The thought brought an immediate response, a flutter of awareness that wasn't his own. He could feel her consciousness stirring alongside his, equally confused and fascinated. "What is this?" Her voice was barely a whisper, but it resonated in both his ears and his mind. "I can feel everything." James tried to move, but the pod's healing matrix held them both firmly in place. Their faces were inches apart, and he could see her silver eyes widening as new sensations washed over them both. "Some kind of neural link," he managed. "The pod must be connecting us somehow." A memory floated to the surface, but it wasn't his. A young Zenith girl standing before the Vanguard Council, her ocean blue skin marked with the first faint patterns of bioluminescence. Pride, determination, and fear all mixed together as she declared her intention to join the warrior caste. James realized he was experiencing Thera's childhood memory. "Stop that," she hissed, but another memory was already replacing it, James at the Earth Defense Force Academy, standing up to a bully who was harassing a younger cadet. Thera felt his righteous anger, his unwavering sense of justice. "I can't control it," James said softly. "I think the pod is sharing our memories too. I don't know, help us understand each other." More memories began to flow between them, faster now. Thera's first space flight, the exhilaration of breaking free from her homeworld's gravity. James's graduation ceremony, his parents beaming with pride. The first time each of them had taken a life in combat, their shared horror and determination to make it mean something. "Your people," Thera's mental voice was thick with emotion as she experienced James's memories of Earth, its oceans, forests, and crowded cities. "You love your world so fiercely. We were told humans were destructive, caring nothing for the planets they colonize. And your civilization," James breathed, seeing through her memories the crystalline spires of the Zenith homeworld, the complex social bonds that united their species. "It's beautiful. Not the cold, militaristic empire we were led to believe." Their shared consciousness expanded, showing them more recent memories. James saw himself through Thera's eyes during their battle, a worthy opponent whose humor and resourcefulness had intrigued her even as they fought. He felt her growing respect, her curiosity about his species warring with her trained hatred. In turn, Thera experienced his admiration for her skill and grace, his instinctive recognition of her intelligence and honor. She felt his regret at having to fight someone he might, in another reality, have called friend. "We've been lied to," they said simultaneously, then shared a moment of surprised amusement at their synchronicity. The pod systems hummed, adjusting to their brainwave patterns as they grew more aligned. Physical sensation began to return, and with it came an awareness of their proximity. James could feel Thara's breath on his face, could sense her heart beating in time with his own. "Your wounds," she observed, both feeling and seeing the way his ribs had knit back together. "They're healing remarkably fast." "Your arm too," he noted, watching in fascination as the broken bone realigned and strengthened. The pod seemed to be using their combined biological processes to accelerate healing in ways neither species' medical technology had achieved alone. A new memory surfaced, more recent. Thara's briefing before the station raid. James felt her confusion as she relived it, seeing details she'd missed in the moment. The mission parameters hadn't made sense. Why attack a research station with such a small force? And the timing. Wait, James shared a memory of his own, his orders to guard the quantum research lab. Why would Earth's most advanced research station have minimal security during a critical experiment? Unless someone wanted this confrontation to happen, Thara finished his thought. Their shared consciousness exploded with implications. Both of them began reviewing their recent memories with new eyes, seeing patterns they'd missed before. The pod's neural interface strengthened, responding to their shared revelation. Memories flowed faster, both of them working together now to piece together a puzzle they hadn't known existed. They saw secret meetings, overheard conversations, suspicious orders that only made sense if. The war, Thara's mental voice was heavy with realization. It's being prolonged deliberately. Both sides. Arms manufacturers, political hardliners, power-hungry officials, James added, sharing memories of things that hadn't made sense at the time. They're working together, keeping our species in conflict for their own gain. The truth hit them both simultaneously. They weren't enemies, had never truly been enemies. They were pawns in a game played by the corrupt elements of both civilizations. As this realization settled over them, something else became apparent. The neural link wasn't fading as their bodies healed. If anything, it was growing stronger. They could feel each other's emotions with perfect clarity, shock, anger, and underneath it all, a growing sense of connection neither had expected. James, Thara's voice was soft, but her mind radiated determination. What are we going to do about this? He didn't need their neural link to understand what she was asking. They had stumbled upon a conspiracy that spanned two civilizations, and they were possibly the only ones who could expose it. More than that, they were living proof that humans and Zenith could not only coexist but connect on the deepest possible level. "We fight," he answered simply. "But this time, we fight together." The pod's lights pulsed in response to their shared resolve, and both of them felt their connection strengthen even further. They were no longer simply two individuals sharing thoughts and memories. They were becoming something new, a bridge between species, a partnership that could change everything. As the pod's healing cycle neared completion, they began to plan. The neural link had given them perfect understanding of each other's capabilities and knowledge. Together, they were far more formidable than either had been alone. The real question was, once the pod opened, would the connection remain? And if it did, how would they navigate a world that saw them as enemies while working to expose a truth that could shake both their civilizations to the core? The healing pod's door slid open with a soft hiss, releasing a cloud of bioluminescent mist into the medical bay. James moved first, his combat training taking over as he scanned the room for threats. The station's emergency lights still flashed, but the sounds of battle had faded. "Clear," he whispered, both aloud and through their mental link. Even outside the pod, the connection remained strong. He could feel Thara's alertness, her warrior's instincts matching his own. Thara gracefully emerged from the pod, her movements synchronized with his as though they'd trained together for years. Her bioluminescent patterns pulsed with renewed energy, and James felt an echo of her physical strength through their bond. "The quantum lab explosion," she said, moving to a computer terminal. "It wasn't an accident. I can feel your memories of the facility's layout. That containment field shouldn't have failed so easily." James nodded, watching her fingers dance across the interface. Their shared knowledge meant she could operate Earth technology as easily as he could. Someone wanted to create chaos, force an evacuation. But why? The answer came to them both simultaneously, their linked minds putting the pieces together. The research data, they said in unison. Through their connection, they shared a rapid exchange of information. The Quantum Research Station had been working on something revolutionary, a new form of faster-than-light communication. If successful, it would have allowed instant communication across vast distances, potentially bringing their species closer together. Which is exactly what the war profiteers don't want, Thera growled, her anger flowing through their link. James placed a hand on her shoulder, instinctively offering comfort. The gesture felt natural now, despite their years as enemies. Movement in the corridor, James warned, picking up distant footsteps through their enhanced awareness. They moved as one, taking cover on opposite sides of the doorway. Through their link, they coordinated without words, establishing fields of fire and escape routes. 3 figures entered, 2 human security officers and a Zenith warrior. All 3 stopped short at the sight of James and Thera. Lieutenant Reeves, one of the humans asked, weapon half raised. We thought you were. His eyes darted to Thera, confusion evident. Stand down, James commanded, his voice carrying the authority of his rank. She's with me. The Zenith warrior's bioluminescent patterns flashed with shock. Third blade Valrun? What is the meaning of this? Thera straightened to her full height, her presence commanding. Through their link, James felt her drawing on formal Zenith protocols. By authority of the Vanguard, I am conducting a special investigation. This human is under my protection. The 3 newcomers exchanged uncertain looks. Their hesitation was all James and Thera needed. Moving in perfect synchronization, they launched their attack. James went low while Thera went high, their movements complementing each other flawlessly. In seconds, all 3 infiltrators were unconscious. Not security, James confirmed, checking their gear. Mercenaries. Good equipment though, someone's paying well. Thera was already removing their weapons. They'll have a ship nearby. We can use it to access their communications, trace it back to their employers. Through their link, they began formulating a plan. The neural connection allowed them to consider and discard options at incredible speed, their combined experience creating strategies neither would have devised alone. The quantum lab first, James decided. We need proof of tampering before we leave. They moved through the station like shadows, their movements perfectly coordinated. When they encountered resistance, they handled it with non-lethal efficiency. Their linked minds could predict and counter any threat, making them nearly unstoppable as a team. The quantum lab was a scene of controlled destruction. Equipment had been strategically damaged, data cores removed. But the saboteurs hadn't counted on facing 2 minds working as one. There, Thera pointed to a seemingly intact console. They missed one. James covered her while she worked, their awareness extended to every approach. Through their link, he could follow her technical analysis, understanding complex Zenith scientific principles as if he'd studied them for years. Got it, she announced, downloading data to a secure crystal. Proof of deliberate sabotage, and... Her silver eyes widened. James, look at this. Through their connection, he saw what she'd discovered. The quantum communication project had been successful, too successful. It had revealed something that someone wanted to keep hidden. These energy signatures, James breathed, understanding flowing through their link. They're identical to natural phenomena occurring between Earth and Zenith space. There's already a natural quantum communication network connecting our worlds. Which means, Thera continued, her mind racing alongside his, our species were meant to find each other. To communicate. To cooperate. Like we are now, James added softly. Through their link, he felt her momentary surge of emotion, affection, trust, and something deeper neither was ready to name. A distant explosion shook the station. More mercenaries, Thera confirmed, her senses extending through their bond. They know we survived. No, we've discovered the truth. James grabbed the data crystal, securing it in his armor. Then let's show them what happens when human ingenuity meets zenith precision. They moved as one toward the sound of approaching enemies, their movements a deadly dance of perfect coordination. Through their neural link, they could anticipate each other's actions, covering weaknesses and amplifying strengths. The mercenary ship, Thera suggested as they fought their way through a group of attackers. If we can access its navigation data, we can trace it back to whoever's behind this, James finished. But they'll be expecting that. A plan formed between them, neither sure who had originated it. That was happening more often now, their thoughts flowing together so smoothly it was becoming harder to distinguish where one mind ended and the other began. They fought their way to the station's docking bay, their combined combat skills making them nearly unstoppable. The mercenary ship was there, a sleek vessel designed for stealth and speed. "Ready?" James asked, though he could feel her answer through their link. Thera's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with determination. "Together," she replied, both aloud and in their shared consciousness. They breached the ship's defenses with ease, their linked minds able to process and counter security measures at incredible speed. Inside, they found more than navigation data. They discovered detailed records of the conspiracy, of secret meetings between corrupt officials from both species. "This is it," James said, securing the evidence. "Everything we need to expose them." Through their neural link, they shared a moment of victory, of hope for what this could mean for both their peoples. But they also felt the weight of what was to come. They had the truth, now they had to survive long enough to share it. As if in response to that thought, the ship's proximity alerts blared. Multiple vessels were approaching, both human and zenith warships. "Looks like someone doesn't want this truth getting out," James observed grimly. Thera's mind touched his, sharing strength and determination. "They don't know what they're dealing with. They've never faced anything like us before." She was right. Their neural link had made them something unprecedented, a perfect fusion of human and zenith capabilities. As they prepared to face what was coming, both felt an absolute certainty, together, they were unstoppable. Breaking chains. The mercenary ship's engines roared to life under James's expert control, while Thera's fingers danced across the weapon's console. Through their neural link, they functioned as a single pilot, their shared consciousness allowing them to operate the vessel with unprecedented skill. 3 Earth Defense Force destroyers approaching from Sector 7, James announced, feeling Thera's tactical analysis merge with his own. 2 Zenith battlecruisers from Sector 4. "They're trying to box us in," Thera observed, her silver eyes narrowing as she studied the tactical display. Through their link, James felt her formulating attack patterns, calculating trajectories with mathematical precision. "Good thing we're not planning to play fair," James grinned, his hands moving across the controls. The ship responded instantly, diving between 2 approaching patrol vessels. Their shared consciousness allowed them to predict the enemy's movements, to find gaps in their formation that no single pilot could have exploited. Plasma fire lit up space around them as both human and zenith ships opened fire. But they were already moving, their neural link allowing them to navigate with impossible precision. Thera's targeting was equally precise, disabled engines and weapons systems with surgical strikes that avoided casualties. "We're not going to make it to either of our territories," Thera said, though James had already reached the same conclusion through their link. "They've got too many ships in position." "Then we go somewhere they won't expect," James replied, a plan forming in their shared consciousness. The Drift. The Drift was a massive debris field, the remnants of an ancient space battle between unknown forces. Both humans and Zenith avoided it due to its unpredictable gravitational anomalies and shifting magnetic fields. But through their link, James and Thera could pool their knowledge, finding safe passages where others saw only chaos. Their pursuers hesitated as the ship plunged into the field of twisted metal and crystalline fragments. James felt Thorah's exhilaration match his own as they wove through the debris, their combined instincts guiding them through the maze. "We need to get this evidence to someone who'll listen," Thorah said, her thoughts mixing with his as they planned. "Someone with enough influence to protect us and spread the truth." Through their connection, memories surfaced, both human and Zenith contacts who might be sympathetic to their cause. But reaching them would be nearly impossible with both governments hunting them. A massive piece of debris suddenly shifted in their path, drawn by one of the drift's gravitational anomalies. James reacted instantly, rolling the ship while Thorah fired the maneuvering thrusters. They cleared the obstacle with inches to spare. "We need allies," James said, guiding them deeper into the drift. "Other people who've seen the corruption but were afraid to speak up." Through their link, they began composing a message, a carefully coded transmission that would reach potential sympathizers in both species without alerting their hunters. Their shared consciousness allowed them to craft it in a way that would be meaningful to both cultures. "There," Thorah pointed to a particular formation of debris. "That structure, it's artificial." James saw it through her eyes. What looked like random wreckage was actually a concealed station, ancient but still intact. The perfect hiding place to catch their breath and plan their next move. They docked carefully, their neural link allowing them to compensate for the station's irregular gravitational field. Inside, they found emergency systems still functioning, providing basic life support. "We can use this place," James said, exploring through both their senses. "Set up a base of operations." Thorah was already accessing the station's old communication array, her technical skills combining with his improvisational ability. "If we can modify these systems, we can reach both our territories without being traced." Their link had grown stronger through the escape and pursuit. Now, as they worked together to establish their hidden base, they found themselves sharing not just thoughts but deeper emotions. James felt Thorah's fierce determination to right the wrongs done to both their peoples. She, in turn, experienced his unwavering hope for a future where their species could live in peace. "James," she said softly, pausing in her work. Through their connection, he felt her struggle with something profound. "This link between us, it's more than just sharing thoughts now, isn't it?" He turned to face her, seeing himself through her eyes even as she saw herself through his. Their neural connection had evolved into something unprecedented, a bridge between species that went far deeper than mere telepathy. "We're proof," he replied, understanding flowing between them. "Proof that humans and Zenith aren't meant to be enemies. We're stronger together than we ever were apart." Their shared consciousness resonated with the truth of it. Every moment together showed them more similarities than differences between their species. The corruption they fought to expose had deliberately hidden these truths, keeping their peoples at war for profit and power. A distant sensor alert interrupted the moment. Ships were entering the drift, searching for them. Through their link, they moved to their positions with practiced ease, monitoring the search patterns. "They're being careful," Thorah observed, her tactical analysis flowing into James's mind. "They know we're more dangerous together than they expected." "Good," James replied, feeling her fierce smile through their connection. "Let them be afraid. We're about to change everything." They began broadcasting their coded message, hiding it in the drift's natural electromagnetic interference. As they worked, their neural link continued to deepen, showing them glimpses of a possible future, one where humans and Zenith work together, their combined strengths creating something greater than either civilization could achieve alone. The station's ancient systems hummed around them as they waited for responses to their call for allies. Through their shared consciousness, they took comfort in each other's presence, drawing strength from their unprecedented partnership. "Whatever comes next," Thorah said, her bioluminescent patterns pulsing with emotion, "we face it together." James's response flowed through their link, a wordless assurance that their bond had grown too strong to break. They were no longer just two individuals fighting against corruption. They had become a symbol of what their species could achieve together, a living bridge between two civilizations that had forgotten they were meant to be allies. As they monitored their broadcasts and planned their next moves, both felt an absolute certainty: the truth they carried would change everything. And their connection, this unprecedented bond between human and Zenith, would light the way to a better future for both their peoples. The ancient station shuddered as another gravitational wave passed through the drift. James and Thera barely noticed, their shared consciousness focused on the stream of encrypted communications flowing through their modified array. Over the past several days, their message had reached further than they'd dared hope. "Another response," Thera announced, her bioluminescent patterns flickering with excitement. Through their neural link, James felt her satisfaction as she decoded the transmission. "Captain Riven of the Zenith Science Guild. She has proof of research suppression, evidence that would support our claims." James nodded, simultaneously monitoring security feeds through their connection. "That makes 7 Zenith officials and 5 human commanders who've pledged support. Plus the independent traders and colonial representatives." Their hidden base had become the center of a growing network of allies, people from both species who had seen the corruption but lacked the proof or power to fight it. Through their unprecedented partnership, James and Thera had given them hope and a chance for change. "They're getting bolder," Thera observed, sensing the shift in James's thoughts. "The conspirators. 3 more accidents in the outer colonies this week." James felt her anger merge with his own. The corrupt officials they fought were growing desperate, eliminating potential threats and whistleblowers. But their actions only served to create more allies for the resistance. Through their neural link, they began formulating the next phase of their plan. Their connection had grown so deep that it was sometimes hard to tell which thoughts originated from whom, not that it mattered anymore. They were something new, a perfect synthesis of human and Zenith consciousness. "The quantum communication network," James said, pulling up the data they'd stolen from the research station. "If we can activate it, we can broadcast the truth to both civilizations simultaneously," Thera finished. "No way for them to stop or censor it." Their shared mind worked through the possibilities. The natural quantum network they discovered, the one that had been deliberately hidden, could bypass all conventional communication channels. But accessing it would mean returning to populated space, exposing themselves to their hunters. A proximity alert flashed, drawing their attention. Through their link, they processed the censored data together, their combined expertise spotting details neither would have caught alone. 8 ships, Thera reported. "But these energy signatures. They're our allies," James confirmed, feeling her recognition. Captain Riven and Commander Halls leading the formation. The small fleet had navigated the drift's dangers to reach them, proving their commitment to the cause. As James and Thera watched, more ships appeared, independent traders, colonial vessels, even a few military craft that had defected to their side. Through their neural link, they shared a moment of profound hope. This was what they'd been working toward, proof that humans and Zenith could work together, could trust each other. "It's time," they said simultaneously, their thoughts perfectly aligned. The next hours were a blur of activity as they coordinated with their allies, preparing for what would be either their greatest victory or their final stand. Their fleet grew as more ships arrived, drawn by the promise of ending a war that had gone on far too long. James and Thera remained at the heart of it all, their unique connection allowing them to coordinate the disparate forces into a unified whole. Through their shared consciousness, they could bridge cultural gaps and overcome misunderstandings that might have otherwise divided their allies. The plan they devised was audacious, a simultaneous strike at key communication hubs in both human and Zenith space. While their allies created a diversion, James and Thera would lead a small team to activate the quantum network and broadcast the truth to both civilizations. "They'll try to stop us," Thera said as they prepared to leave their sanctuary in the drift. Through their link, James felt her anticipation rather than fear. "They'll fail," he replied with certainty born of their shared strength. "They've never faced anything like us before." Their small fleet emerged from the drift like avenging spirits, catching their opponents off guard. The corrupt officials had expected them to hide, to work from the shadows. Instead, they struck directly at the centers of power. The battle that followed would be remembered in the histories of both species. James and Thera's forces moved with unprecedented coordination, human and Zenith ships fighting side by side as if they'd trained together for years. Through their neural link, the pair directed the battle like master conductors leading a symphony of destruction. But the real victory came not from weapons, but from truth. As their allies engaged the enemy fleet, James and Thera infiltrated the primary communication hub. Their shared consciousness allowed them to bypass security systems designed to keep their species apart, their combined knowledge making them unstoppable. The quantum network activated under their touch, its power having waited dormant for centuries. Through their neural link, they felt the ancient system respond, recognizing perhaps the first true union of human and Zenith minds. "Ready?" James asked, though he could feel her answer through their connection. Thera's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with determination. "Together," she replied, both aloud and in their shared consciousness. They broadcast everything, the proof of corruption, the evidence of conspiracy, the ancient quantum network that suggested their species had been meant to find each other. But most importantly, they shared their own story, the tale of two enemies who had discovered a deeper truth through their forced connection. Their neural link allowed them to present the truth in a way both species could understand, their shared consciousness bridging the gap between different ways of thinking. As their message spread across both civilizations, they felt the shock, the anger, and finally the hope that rippled through countless minds. The conspirators fought back, of course. But they had already lost. The truth, once revealed, could not be hidden again. Across human and Zenith space, people began to question, to demand answers, to reach out to their supposed enemies and find friends instead. In the aftermath, as their allies secured victory and arrested the corrupt officials, James and Thera stood together on the observation deck of their commandeered station. Through their neural link, they shared not just thoughts but a vision of the future, one where their unprecedented partnership could become a model for cooperation between their species. "They're calling us heroes," James said, watching ships from both civilizations working together to secure the communication hub. Thera's amusement flowed through their connection. "They're calling us much more than that. Some are saying we're the first of something new, a true joining of human and Zenith." Their shared consciousness resonated with the truth of it. Their neural link had evolved into something permanent, a bridge between species that proved cooperation was not just possible but natural. What happens now? James wondered, though through their connection, both already knew the answer. They would become ambassadors, teachers, living proof that their species were stronger together than apart. Their unique bond would help guide both civilizations toward a future of cooperation rather than conflict. As they watched the combined fleet prepare to escort them to the peace negotiations, their neural link hummed with shared purpose. They had broken the chains of hatred and lies that had kept their peoples apart. Now they would help build something new, a future where the strengths of both species could create wonders neither could achieve alone. Their story would be told for generations, but its greatest chapter was just beginning. Through their unprecedented connection, human ingenuity and Zenith wisdom would light the way toward a united future, proving that the greatest victories come not from fighting against each other, but from learning to fight together.